I'm excited to welcome John Wei, the Director of Applied Ventures, to the show. Welcome, John.
Thank you. Thank you, Jack. Thank you for having me.
It's great to see you. Let's see, I think the last time we connected was probably at a global corporate venturing
Uh,
session. Have you been traveling much? I know I'm headed to Tokyo for the next conference in November. You've been traveling much or doing mostly Zoom calls these days?
I travel back to the home office. I mean, to the Santa Clara office, maybe every few weeks. But other than that, mostly Zoom. I'm actually heading over to Asia in November as well. So maybe we'll meet up across the year.
Look forward to that. So, Applied Materials, as I understand it, 100 offices worldwide. How did you end up in Sugar Land, Texas?
Yeah, so I've been in Houston for 8 years. So before joining Applied, I was working at a corporate venture arm for a petrochemical company called Civic. That's where their offices are. And I joined Applied at the end of 2020. So that's, if you recall, that's the height of the pandemic period, and everybody's working from home. So originally the plan was I was gonna relocate over to California once the pandemic's over. But I think over this pandemic period, the entire society collectively were doing a big experiment, and the conclusion is Zoom is doing a pretty darn good job. So I think I'm gonna probably stay here in Houston for the foreseeable future, and then just commute as needed.
Okay. And so let's talk a little bit about your journey to Applied. You spent some time upper management positions, engineering positions, GE, Exxon, some other places. Talk a little bit about your journey from those positions, sort of functional positions, into this corporate venture position.
Yeah, it's been a long journey. So my background is in chemical engineering, and also have a degree in computer science. And I started off working at GE, mostly working on sort of power generation, renewable energy related technology. I think at that time, I remember Jack Welch. He in his book, he mentioned, he started off as a chemical engineering PhD at GE, and then he quickly realized he's never going to be the best chemical engineer in GE. There's so many talents out here, and that's when he decided to turn to management. Now, I'm no Jack Welch, but the thought process, I guess there's some parallel there. So I early on, I kind of realized I have short attention span. I'm sort of attracted to all the different innovations, a lot of new technologies, and at that time, GE has a venture division called GE Ventures, and it was more pure financial venture arm, not really a sort of a technology driven or anything. But I did sort of get pulled by the GE Venture team multiple times to go out and do due diligence and visit companies. That's kind of when I got hooked, and I was like, this is the right career for me. And I later took on got my MBA while I was at GE, and that's when I sort of made the transition into initially sort of open innovation, and then into full-on corporate venture.
Well, given your enthusiasm for innovation, it sort of seems like at the macro level, many corporate venture groups are, although they're stage agnostic for the most part, doing everything from seed investments all the way through acquisitions. It seems like more and more of them are focused on seed and early stage opportunities and co-investing at the early stages, even at times pre-revenue. What's your sense at sort of the macro level? Why corporates are starting to maybe move from passive roles at the Series C and Series D rounds of financing to more active roles at the Series A and Series B rounds?
Yeah, so I think obviously different CVCs, they position themselves differently. They have different strategies, and so in my previous shop at Civic Ventures, it was similar stage. We look at A and B and C, kind of early stage. I think when you're looking at venturing as a way to feed your M&A pipeline, you probably are looking at a little bit later stage. But if you're seeing venturing as a sort of supplement to your technology development to your innovation pipeline, then it makes sense to go early stage. You take on more risk, but you can also generate a lot of internal innovation and foster a lot of sort of new latest and greatest things inside of your own R&D community.
Yeah, it seems as though corporates are no longer exclusively reliant on internal R&D efforts. It's almost a crowdsourcing R&D to make sure they're in touch with what's out there. You're interacting with entrepreneurs in unique ways, and Applied Ventures has a bit of a unique investment style. Can you talk a little bit about whether you lead rounds of financing, whether you like board seats, maybe talk a little bit about typical check size, and give us sort of an overview on your investment style?
Sure, maybe just a quick overview of Applied Ventures. So Applied Ventures actually has been around for a long time in different shape and form, and our main investment focus is obviously on semiconductor and display, being one of the largest semiconductor display equipment maker. But we also invest sort of outside of our core, from data, AI, energy, photonics, life science, supply chain, ESG, etc. So fully buzzword compliant list of areas that we look at. Our typical, I guess, stage is something around Series B, plus or minus 1 or 2 stages. We usually don't touch seed stage companies, because I think a lot of time seed stage companies need a different kind of help than what we can provide. They probably need more coaching or just setting things up, rather than need help, from a technical perspective or from a market access perspective, which are things that corporates are perhaps better suited to help them with. Our typical check size anywhere from 3 million to 10 million. Obviously, in areas that are more strategic to us, for example, semiconductor equipment, technologies, tools and processes, these are core areas, then usually the check size could be larger. And in some of the areas that maybe we don't really have a presence, but are kind of trying to learn about a new space, a new area, more exploratory kind of investment, maybe towards a little bit smaller size. But as any corporate venture investment firm, we always say there's really no hard limit on check size. For the right company, money is not a problem. So,
how active are you collaborating with the business units at Applied on due diligence on the front end or adding value on the back end? Can you talk a little bit about whether business unit sponsorship is required for your investment, and how you might collaborate both with sort of the internal teams and in a collaborative way with the external startups?
Yeah, so Applied Ventures is perhaps considered as a more of a strategic investor, in that a lot of our investments are sort of geared towards core business or adjacent spaces that we have either ongoing business activities or R&D activities that either we can provide technologies that can help startup commercialize, or vice versa, things that are critical to our business success or help us get into new business, new market. So that's kind of how we typically operate, but we try to maintain a balance. Some of the certain smaller percentage of our investments does not really have any existing sort of a relationship with our core business. So these are areas, we call it invest to learn. So adjacent spaces, new areas, new market. So when we look at these spaces, usually there's no sort of sponsorship or even business team that had the expertise to help you. So in some of these areas, the venture investment team are the ones who really kind of thesis and a lot of time kind of develop expertise and really sort of do a thorough vetting of the space and identify, winners and develop really the story. So in these cases, there's no BU sponsorship. But I think I would say maybe 60-70% of our investments are more sort of BU driven, and the rest are sort of thesis driven.
And then with regard to sourcing, I mean, you've got a broad variety of industry sectors that you articulated. In addition to that, from some of the research that we've done on some of your investing and other things that are published out there about applied ventures. I mean, it looks like, not only sort of smartphones, AR, VR, big data, life sciences, robotics, clean tech. I mean, obviously advanced materials. These are all areas that are quite diverse by technology sector. How are you finding that you're sort of sourcing interesting investment opportunities?
Yeah, so sourcing is definitely an important part of any venturing group. I remember somebody was saying venture investment is all about, it's like playing poker. If you can build a machine that constantly give you pocket aces, you're due to have really fantastic return. Playing poker is not difficult, but having this ability to get really good deals, get the pocket aces, is the difficult part. So I don't think we have any special recipe, but usually we get a lot of our good quality deals from internal business units who often are very tuned into the space that they're active in, and they will recommend really high quality companies and that has really unique technologies. Another really good source is obviously from other venture firms that we usually collaborate with, or partners such as yourself. And also obviously all of our the investors in the group, we try to develop our own ecosystem, our own network. A lot of good deals come from the ecosystem. In addition to that, we Apply Venture, we're kind of doing something, I guess, a little bit different. We've set up a few regional funds where we're taking a GP position. For example, we have a fund in Taiwan and a fund in Korea, and even one with the New York State. So the idea is, for example, use the Korea fund as an example. We would take on the government. Korea government would be one of the largest LP, and we would be in a GP, and also we put in our own money, substantial amount of money. So jointly, we would be then looking into investments that are perhaps more Korean startup companies that are in the semiconductor space. And Fund 1 was actually quite successful. I think it was like 4 IPO out of 6 or something, and then the 5th is coming up soon. So they're doing well, and then we're kind of getting into the Fund 2. So those partners of ours in Taiwan and Korea, these obviously also are a great source of deal flow for us. And
Is that a new trend within corporate venture to look at scout funds or other funds by geography or by industry sector, where corporates are leaning in and maybe making LP commitments into those funds as another source of industry relevant deal flow?
Yeah, we've done that. I believe before I joined, Apply did that. We invest in funds as an LP in the early days of Apply Ventures, but I think over the years, the team is becoming more and more experienced and very well connected to different regions. There's sort of less of a need to invest in funds. Our own capabilities in different regions and is I guess strong enough. So we haven't really been that active investing in funds as an LP. It's almost the reverse. We kind of had built a bit of a track record, and now some of these government entities are wanting to collaborate with us and ask us to sort of invest for them. So.
Interesting. So you got some momentum now.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered sort of the investment side of things and the process side of things. Let's shift gears and talk a little bit about sort of the entrepreneurs that are out there. As you interact with these entrepreneurs who are running these innovative startup companies, can you talk a little bit about, the qualities and character traits that you like to see, particularly at the sort of, let's say, the Series A level, the earlier level, where before the team's really built out, there's a lot riding on the founder and the early, executive team. Maybe just talk a little bit about your view on entrepreneurs and the things you like to see.
Yeah, I mean, this is sort of the key, right? Everybody, all the VC firms are trying to figure out what's the winning recipe. Obviously, you want a very, very strong team, good founders and charismatic leaders that are building a strong team. To us, team is the most important part. The technology can pivot, market could change, but if you have a strong enough of a team, they will find ways to make things work. But also, Applied Ventures being in the semiconductor space, we're ultra technical. So, we pay a lot of attention to, technical differentiation and sophistication, to be honest. When that's something I kind of realized when I joined Applied, coming from chemical or petrochemical or energy industry, you kind of look for scale more than technology, right? Whereas at Applied, I think, someone was telling me, hey, if this is something that everybody can do, if it is sort of easy to do, then we don't want it. We want to really work on things that nobody else in the world can work on. For example, a lot of these think about these semiconductor manufacturing process. Really, you're manipulating materials on atomic level at industrial scale, and that's sort of the key differentiation. So we pay a lot of attention to technical quality of these sort of innovation, and that already, super team and super technology, that already pretty much covers some of the key factors of these high quality startups that we're looking for.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Let me give you a snapshot of how we think about interacting with corporate venture groups, and then I'd love to have you reciprocate and say how you like to work with VC firms, particularly seed stage firms like ours. I mean, we've had the opportunity to co-invest with Applied Ventures, also as I think Intel and Zoom and Baidu, Yamaha, SK Hynix, and a number of others. So we're learning a lot in idea exchange and information exchange about sort of market insight. Where might there be demand from customers for a particular innovation? We're also collaborating with some corporates on events. You've been kind enough to come out and be a speaker on one of the expert speakers at our Impact Global Venture Summit. And so that's been interesting, is exchanging, ideas in person and sort of showcasing some of the corporate venture groups to an audience of 1,000 entrepreneurs. Obviously, we've co-invested with some corporates. We have corporates that have acquired our portfolio companies, and then corporates as LPs. So we really sort of have different touch points all along the way, from the beginning of our business process to the end. That's how we think about Applied Ventures and other top tier corporate venture groups out there, and how we can collaborate. When you look at collaborating with VC firms like ours, can you describe sort of how you view the optimal way to collaborate with a seed stage VC firm like Impact?
Yeah, I mean, we love to partner with financial VCs such as yourself, and I think traditional VC and financial VCs, they bring a sort of different set of expertise and discipline. As a corporate venture, we're kind of proud to have the sort of technical expertise and market know-how. But like I said earlier, sometimes startup company needed help with coaching the CEO or setting up the right organization, and also having a much broader network than just say semiconductor industry or any other industry. So that's kind of where a lot of the financial VCs really can come in. And also, I think to some extent, some of the corporate VCs decision-making process is not the fastest, and so that's where a lot of financial VCs can be kind of more flexible and be able to, fill a lot of the gaps while the corporates are sort of doing its due diligence and doing, especially evaluating technologies and taking its time to make decisions. So it's definitely been a pleasant experience collaborating with various different financial VCs, and I think there's value that different parts are contributing.
Well, we had an opportunity to co-invest with you into Kornami, the company that we believe is a market leader in the area of fully homomorphic encryption. It was interesting to see, Intel and IBM sort of step forward with enthusiasm about FHE, as well as other groups that are in the AI chip space more broadly, that are doing some interesting things like Samba Nova and Grok and GraphCore. Kornami is obviously a very interesting company that we think has a lead time advantage and over some of the largest companies in the industry as it relates to FHE and its performance in that space. Can you talk a little bit about why you were enthusiastic about Kornami and any insights you might provide on the FHE marketplace?
Well, interesting that you're asking. I actually wrote a kind of a general investment thesis around confidential computing, published on VentureBeat. If people are interested, they could probably still search it up. But overall, I think we became very interested in this confidential computing space, recognizing that, in the current sort of day and age, data is really the most critical part of any company. But at the same time, you see a lot of the sort of geopolitical tension and also just consumer concern for data security and privacy, etc. So that creates a conflict, right? On the one hand, everybody wants more data. On the other hand, everybody's careful not to share data because of the security concern. And so confidential computing becomes sort of this powerful tool that can really allow you to share data without really sharing the data, to allow you to extract value out of these data without giving up the data. So that's if you think about it, semiconductor industry, you could argue is one of the more paranoid industry. A lot of our technology is coming to a sort of a national security level, right? That's how serious people are about security in our industry. And so this whole confidential computing topic become extra important. And so when we look at this space, you have different flavors. You have homomorphic encryption, you have federated learning, you have enclave, various different flavors, all trying to sort of drive towards similar goals. But homomorphic encryption come out to be, one of the more sort of interesting and promising technologies, and honestly also just mathematically very elegant, right? And so you can really do a lot of wonderful things with homomorphic encryption, but the biggest problem for homomorphic encryption is it's extremely slow. It's excruciatingly slow. So that kind of led us to think about, okay, if there are technologies that can really sort of unlock this potential by speeding things up, and that itself is a huge amount of value that is being created. Just like how AI chip companies can accelerate AI computation and therefore accelerate the adoption of AI ML technology. So that's the thought process, that's the thesis. And obviously Kornami has a super strong team with Wally and experienced team. I remember I was very impressed with doing diligence. I think it was Saeed. He was like, "Oh, I've taped out 99 chips, and this will be my 100th." So very strong team, so that checked my checked the box, right, the first box. And technology, very differentiated technology, and also not only applicable in the homomorphic encryption space, which is a sort of one of the more interesting application, but it's also the chip design itself is quite interesting and has potential to to see applications in many different high performance computing space. So that's just a very interesting and a very strong proposition. That's why we ended up making the investment together with SoftBank.
When you look at these new areas of innovation, oftentimes is your corporate venture investment signal an area that you are likely to acquire businesses in? I mean, do you find that this invest to learn strategy oftentimes evolves into, wait a minute, you've identified a big market opportunity, differentiated technology, great team. Okay, now let's start looking at an acquisition of that company. Can you just talk a little bit about sort of maybe how you work with the M&A group, or sort of how that process sort of plays out?
Yeah, so the situation you described, that could happen, but usually that takes a longer time horizon. It's very difficult to predict what's going to happen. Is it going to turn into an acquisition? So typically when we look at a company for investment, we would ask ourselves, is this a potential acquisition play? And that requires a different kind of internal conversation about the kind of resource that we need to deploy, and also the kind of level of the investments and all the other parameters. We do, in a lot of cases, look at acquisition target in core semiconductor, especially equipment and tools and processes related companies. These are our sort of bread and butter. So, but we also always tell the startups, don't sort of assume an acquisition is coming, or don't bet on it. Hope is not a strategy. So you should try to be the best, most valuable company that you can be, without thinking apply as a potential acquirer. Because often we started off as hey, this company is really interesting, we could potentially acquire them down the road, and then maybe market changes, or even the technology trend changes, and there are multiple cases where we ended up investing in companies, and they ended up being acquired by our competitors or by some other players, which is okay. I mean, those are sort of a very good return in any case. So that's kind of
helpful.
Thinking about it. Yeah.
Yep, that's very helpful. Okay, John, rapid fire portion of the program. Okay, just a couple of quick personal questions, if you don't mind. Love to hear about sort of how you prepare yourself for professional excellence as one of the top corporate venture groups in the industry. Is there anything you do to sort of stay sharp, stay in touch with market trends on a regular basis?
I stay sharp by talking to venture firms such as yourself, Impact Ventures.
That's a great answer. That's a good start, I guess. I'm sure it expands beyond that. Anything else that you do that you find either blogs or podcasts or other publications that you find particularly interesting that you seem to keep up on?
Yeah, I kind of don't really have a favorite blogs or anything. I guess I'm more of a kind of a visual person. So I find sometimes when I'm looking at new technology, completely new spaces, and you often dig into various different YouTube channels or different materials. There are some really good content providers on YouTube that actually give you a ton of information. I was recently looking at advanced electric motor companies, and there was this channel that I run into called Lessix. It was fantastic. I was just, apart from what I was interested in, I was kind of watching a lot of their other YouTubes, it's all about physics, engineering, how machinery works. It's just fascinating. But then I have a short attention span, so next month I may be going on to some other YouTubers.
Last question for you. We're all navigating through this sort of work-life integration, figuring out the new normal, right? So many more Zoom calls and fewer in-person meetings. We're sort of slowly but surely, hopefully getting back to a more regular normal. Is there anything you do to sort of start your day? Any kind of personal routines? I'm writing and researching a bit on sort of how to apply sort of best practices from business to sort of your personal life, and sort of set up your day so that you're optimized both physically and mentally to sort of bring your A game to your endeavors for the day. Anything you do in the morning to sort of kick things off and launch?
Well, I don't actually do anything special. I happen to have an awesome routine because I'm in Houston, and the mothership is in California, so I'm 2 hours ahead. So every morning I start my day is probably the 2-3 hours in the morning is my most productive time. Anything I need full attention or anything that's important, I get those done, and then you go on to all sorts of calls and Zoom meetings and etc. So that's been working out great, and I love it.
The large projects that require a lot of focus get done early. Is that the strategy?
Well, I start my day really, really early, so I get quality time. That's just that's my strategy, and it just happened the time zone works out great. So
Got it.
yeah.
I got it. John, thanks so much for allocating a little bit of time to share sort of market insights, to allow us to learn a little bit more about Applied Ventures and a little bit more about you. Look forward to finding other co-investment opportunities and certainly recruiting you back for speaking engagements at our summit again. Thanks for making time today.